For decades, the NBA's greatest of all time debate has revolved around one name, Michael Jordan. 6 championships, 5 MVPs, 10 scoring titles, The Last Dance, the Jordan brand. For millions of fans, the conversation begins and ends with MJ. But what if I told you that one of the smoothest, most respected players to ever grace an NBA court, a man whose game inspired legends, doesn't quite see it that way? George Gervin, the Iceman himself, recently shared his thoughts on why Michael Jordan may not be the clear-cut GOAT. And what he said forces us to look deeper, not just at Jordan's greatness, but at how we define greatness itself. It's important to understand why Gervin questions the GOAT narrative, how history and context shape our understanding of greatness, and why, if we're being honest, the conversation might be way more complicated and way more interesting than we often make it.
Sellers has Jordan. Jordan with 2 seconds to go, puts it up and scores at the buzzer. Michael Jordan has won it for Chicago.
Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead.
He's definitely, man, one of the best to ever do it. Everybody say he's the greatest of all time. I always say, what criteria are you using to say that?
Let's start here. Michael Jordan is a basketball god. No one disputes that. His resume is flawless. His cultural impact is untouchable. He turned the NBA into a global phenomenon. He didn't just play the game, he defined it. But here's the thing, the word greatest carries a lot of weight. It's not just about stats, it's not just about rings, it's about legacy, dominance, influence, and most importantly, perspective. And that's what George Gervin is challenging. When he hears people say Jordan is the greatest of all time, his response is simple. What criteria are you using to say that?
Nah, because, I hear a friend, man. I love him, man. He definitely, man, one of the best to ever do it. Everybody say he's the greatest of all time. I always say, what criteria are you using to say that? Because you can't forget about that brother that played with Coop named Magic Johnson.
Yeah. Or how about Kareem?
And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell. Ain't nobody got more championships than Bill Russell.
It's not a knock on Jordan. It's a reminder that all time is a big word. And when you really break it down, there's no universal rule book for what greatest actually means. To understand why Gervin's voice matters, you need to understand who he is. George Gervin wasn't just a good player, he was poetry on a basketball court. Known as the Iceman for his cool demeanor, Gervin was a 4-time scoring champion in the 1970s and early 1980s. In the 1979-80 season, he averaged 33.1 points per game. And here's the kicker, he did it without a 3-point line. He once dropped 63 points in a single game, again without the benefit of threes. His signature move, the finger roll, is still one of the most iconic shots in basketball history. Smooth, artistic, and unstoppable. But like so many legends of the pre-Jordan era, Gervin's name often fades into the background when fans talk about the NBA's all-time greats. And that part is his point. The game didn't start with Michael Jordan. The league didn't become competitive when the Bulls started winning. And ignoring that history, Gervin argues, does a disservice to the legends who laid the foundation for everything we love about the NBA today. Here's where Gervin's perspective gets really interesting. When he questions the GOAT label, it's not because he doesn't respect Jordan. He calls him definitely one of the best to ever do it. But the problem, Gervin says, and I quote, is this. When you say all time, what is all time?
And Tim, so, when you say all time, man, come on, man, what is all time? That's a thing that you can use for separation, man. Everybody played in their own era. Is Mike the best in his era? Hell yeah. But he ain't the greatest of all time in my, I simply because I don't know what criteria you're using to say that.
Think about that for a second. What criteria are we actually using? Is it championships? If so, Bill Russell has 11 rings in 13 seasons. Is it scoring? Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 points per game for an entire season. Is it longevity? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played 20 seasons, retired as the NBA's all-time leading scorer, and collected 6 MVPs along the way. For longevity, it's LeBron James as well. Being 40 years old and finishing 6th in MVP voting is really unheard of. But what about versatility? Well, Magic Johnson won 5 titles, 3 MVPs, and literally revolutionized the point guard position at 6'9". The truth is, every era has its own version of dominance, and every legend brought something unique to the game. So when fans and even analysts talk about Jordan as the undisputed GOAT, what they're often really saying is Jordan is my GOAT based on what I value the most. And that's exactly Gervin's point. There's no one-size-fits-all definition here. One of the most fascinating aspects of this conversation is the idea of eras. Basketball in the 1960s was nothing like basketball in the 1980s. And the game today, it's practically a different sport. Bill Russell dominated an era with 8 to 9 teams in his prime, no three-point line, and with a league still wrestling with segregation and racism. The physical and mental challenges he faced were unlike anything players deal with today. Wilt Chamberlain, meanwhile, was so far ahead of his time athletically that his stats almost feel fake. 50 points a game for a season, a 100-point game. And he did it without modern training regimens, sports science, or even nutrition programs. Then you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whose career spanned generations, from Oscar Robertson and Julius Erving to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. He adapted, evolved, and dominated for 2 decades. Jordan came into a league that had been built on those foundations. His era had expanded television coverage, corporate sponsorships, and a new level of media scrutiny. And to his credit, Jordan didn't just survive in that environment, he thrived, turning it into his own personal stage. But here's the thing. You can't compare those eras with one measuring stick. Different rules, different styles, different pressures. Gervin's argument is simple. If greatness is tied to context, then each era has its own greatest. Jordan might be the greatest of his era. Russell might be the greatest winner. Kareem might be the greatest scorer alongside LeBron. Magic might be the greatest innovator. And LeBron again might be the greatest all-round player. The game evolves, and so does the definition of greatness. So why, despite all of this, does the Jordan as the GOAT narrative persist? Part of it is cultural. Jordan became a symbol, not just a player. His dominance coincided with the NBA's explosion into mainstream culture. His partnership with Nike created a brand that transcended sports. Then there's The Last Dance, which reintroduced his story to a new generation. For many younger fans, that documentary felt definitive, almost like a courtroom closing argument for why MJ is the greatest ever. And honestly, the mythology is powerful. The flu game, the 63 points in the Garden, the last shot against Utah. Those moments are burned into our collective memory. But mythology isn't the same thing as objective analysis, and that's why Gervin's perspective matters. He's not trying to take away from Jordan's legend. He's reminding us that basketball history is bigger than one man, even if that man is Michael Jordan. Here's where the conversation gets really valuable. What if, instead of trying to crown the single, undisputed GOAT, we start appreciating greatness in a more holistic way? What if we acknowledge that Bill Russell's 11 rings means something different, but equally valid, compared to Jordan's 6? What if we appreciated that Wilt's absurd statistical dominance doesn't diminish Kareem's scoring consistency or LeBron's all-round brilliance? And what if we accepted that, in a sport that has evolved dramatically over 75 years, greatest of all time might not be a fixed point, but a spectrum? That's the lesson in Gervin's words. The GOAT debate doesn't need an end with a definitive answer. In fact, maybe it's more interesting when it doesn't. Because when we open up the conversation, we start to appreciate the full tapestry of the NBA, from the pioneers who played in segregated arenas, to the icons who carried the league into a global spotlight, to the stars today who are redefining what's possible on the court. So let's talk about it. Who's your GOAT? And more importantly, why? Is it rings? Is it dominance? Is it skill? Is it cultural impact? For some, Jordan will always be their answer. For others, it's LeBron, especially after becoming the all-time leading scorer. Older fans might swear by Kareem or Russell. Meanwhile, there's a growing appreciation for players like Kobe Bryant, who bridged generations and inspired millions. The beauty of this debate is that there's no wrong answer, as long as you can back it up with reasoning. And that's maybe what Gervin wants us to take away. That greatness isn't about erasing the past or ignoring context. It's about celebrating it in all of its forms. George Gervin's comments might sound controversial at first. After all, questioning Michael Jordan's status as the GOAT feels almost sacrilegious in some circles. But really, what he's doing is inviting us to think deeper, to appreciate the complexity of a sport we love, to honor every era, every legend, every different kind of greatness that shaped the NBA. Jordan is the GOAT to many, and that's okay. But maybe, just maybe, the more honest answer is there isn't one greatest of all time. There are many. And maybe that's the point. But now I want to hear from you guys. Drop a comment below and let me know. Who's your GOAT and what's your criteria? Does Gervin have a point that the debate needs more nuance? Or is Jordan still, without question, the top of the mountain? If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like this video, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future breakdowns like this one. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Damian Peters. This is Basketball Network, and we'll see you in the next one.